Well, it's about time for you to go on like another all whiskey diet again there.
No, I'm on a diet. Yeah, I'm on a reverse diet. I think if you eat a lot, it keeps your metabolism more ramped up, and so it's like a different
Giving the metabolism a workout.
Yeah.
10 meals a day.
Yeah, you just keep the metabolism going. You just eat every time you're hungry, and just keep it going up till midnight. That's gonna work.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit, and let's go through just a little bit of news. You know, a few weeks ago when we announced that we are going to be doing more barrel picks through our Patreon support page, we got a lot of different emails, a lot of different inquiries, a lot of new signups, and we figured that Ryan and I got to spend about 12 hours in the car over the past few weeks, and we had just the opportunity to be able to talk and figure out, well, what is the most fair thing that we could possibly do? And we have now gone through and updated our lottery process for all the barrel selections that we're doing going forward. So this is the best way we could do to be able to make it fair to our longtime supporters, as well as people who are new and are joining that are getting in early on the process, because we've got more news to announce a little bit later as we can get through some of more of the legal parts of it, right? But after that, we're going to have hopefully a lot more people signing up to get in on it. So if you're thinking about it, now's a good time to jump in, and we've dropped a few hints already with inside of Patreon, so you can go there and go check it out. And we did this because we really just want to be, really transparent about what we're doing and just bring clarity to the entire subject. Now, onto the barrel pick process in itself. Our barrel of bourbon pick is now live, and if you are thinking about it or want a bottle, please go to the sign up sheet and get your names in ASAP. I'm going to do the cutoff tomorrow at the end of the day on the 29th. So make sure you go and do that, because our bottles are already in DC ready to start getting shipped, and we need to get those out the door because I know there's some anxious folks. In the first half of today's show, we talk about the news that really everyone is fully aware of by now, and that's the collapse of the Barton warehouse. We put some chaos theories to the table and try to figure out if maybe what we think happens is, really the cause. But we also kind of figure out if this is going to be a wake-up call for the rest of the industry. Next, we switch to a personal and professional topic for a Roundtable member, which is Brian Harra of Sipp'n Corn, where he has actually won a case against Sazerac in court because Sazerac was suing Castle & Key over using the name Old Taylor Distillery in reference to location. It's quite an education experience that you're going to get during that segment. Then we wrap up the show talking about everybody's favorite new releases, and these are the ones that are hitting the TTB and some that are hitting stores already, so we give our insights into those. Remember that if you do like the show, support us on Patreon. We've got a lot of cool things. As I announced, we've got barrel picks, more things in regards of just bourbon barrel experiences that are being announced that are be Patreon only are going to be there as well. We've got t-shirts, patches, bottle totes, lots of different things. Also, make sure you're following us on social media with Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And make sure that if you are listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher or podcast or whatever it is, make sure you subscribe. Also, if you like the videos, go to YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Getting those subscriptions really helps us grow and really helps us get what we need to continue growing this as well. And if you like these episodes, you can go ahead and go to our website, bourbonpursuit.com, sign up for our email list, and you're going to get those beamed straight to your inbox every Thursday morning at 7 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. With that, enjoy this week's episode. Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order. Always find what you love at Total Wine & More.
With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof. And the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com. And you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long.
Play Whiskey Wednesday Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you can win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Pursuit podcast, the official podcast of bourbon. This is the 22nd recording of the Bourbon Community Roundtable. It's a crowd favorite and always a fan favorite because we've got bloggers, we've got some podcasters, just Ryan and I usually, but
We have bloggers.
Yeah,
Good blogs.
They're like C-list celebrities in the bourbon world, right? But they're getting there. They're getting there. No, I'm just kidding. But this is always great because we've got a lot of good information to kind of go through tonight in regards of latest news of what's been happening. We're also starting to hit the front end of the announcements for bourbon releases that are starting to come out because of things that are starting to hit the TTB, and people start getting really antsy about what's going to be coming out, and there's a lot of things to talk about. And I think more or less is going to be a lot of what we do best, which is speculation and guessing, right? Because that's all we can really do when it hits there. We can just talk about what we can expect to see from it. And then odds of actually getting it are going to be slim only because of, how crazy bourbon's gotten and we can't get our hands on it anymore. So Ryan, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, great, Kenny. How are you?
Hey,
Long time no see.
We got some good banter going already. All right.
I'm excited.
But yeah, anything else you want to add to that before we kick it off?
No, I think you covered it all. We got some interesting topics. I think you sent out the email listing some topics, so I think they're going to be good ones, and I'm excited to hear everyone's take as always.
What are you drinking tonight?
I just poured the President's Choice sample we got.
How much did you pour? Like a droplet? Let me see that thing. How much did they send you?
200 ml, I think, is what it is.
Yeah,
it's
pretty
100.
good. I like it. Good job, Campbell, picking it first.
Real quick, is that a national release or is that just Kentucky?
Just gift shop Kentucky only at the new distillery.
Yeah, we can give a little bit of a heads up about that. Is that the Old Forester has just opened their downtown location here in Louisville, Kentucky, and one of the things that they're trying to do, that most people are trying to do with Inside of the Bourbon Trail, is trying to have something that gets you inside the door. So you have a distillery only release or a gift shop only release, and the President's Choice is their gift shop only release. And if I remember or recall correctly, and Ryan can correct me, is that they are chosen with Campbell Brown as well as Jackie Zykan. So they are choosing them together. and they're trying to proof them down as well to find out what she says is when it sings its best song.
It sounded like Jackie picked out most of them that on the flavor profile that she thought Campbell liked, and then he picked them from there. So, but I think this one's pretty good. What was it going to be? $75 a bottle?
75, 90. Yeah. It's somewhere around there. But again, it's just one of those things to try to get you in the door. But before we start talking about that, I want to go ahead and introduce everybody that's here on the round table. And we're going to start with Blake. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, so I'm Blake from Bourboner.com. You can find me at all social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, a little bit of YouTube reviews here and there, but BOURBONR.com.
And what are you drinking tonight?
I just poured this Elijah Craig store pick from one of my locals, Browdy's. These are actually really good. And, they're like $25-$30. And I think this one was 11 years, 10 or 11 years. So, I'm glad to see the Elijah Craig Private Barrels coming back.
Me too.
Now, wouldn't you rather see that be barrel proof, though? I mean, let's be real.
I think everyone would rather see it.
That would be ideal.
Which you kind of wonder why they don't allow that. I mean, I can't imagine from a
it's going to cost the same either way.
Yeah, it's going to cost the same. They're already doing the private picks, allow you to do your proof. I guess they're thinking, they don't want to reduce the brand of the ECBP. I don't know. I'm kind of shocked they haven't said, all right, now we'll roll that out. But then maybe, if they do the barrel proof on those, and then some of them aren't 12 years, and there's some confusion there on the Elijah Craig barrel proof still being 12 years. Who knows? Maybe we'll see that one day. If only we knew someone at Heaven Hill we could throw that suggestion to.
I know a few people. Kenny does.
No idea. I don't have a guess. So, all right, let's go on. Brian, you're up next.
So, Brian from Sipp'n Corn. You can find me on my Google blog, Sipp'n Corn, and mostly on Twitter and a little bit on Facebook. And you'll see the legal, historical side of bourbon along with some reviews. And I've got my Wilderness Trail that I think a lot of you guys picked up over last couple of weeks. Haven't tried the rye yet, but this is their 4-year single barrel bourbon, which I'm really enjoying.
Good deal. Carrie, round us out.
Hey, this is Carrie from Twitter at @bourbon_gamer. That's usually where you'll find me. I'm actually selling a website. If anybody's interested, the website is suburbia.com. It's got a lot of Google links, a lot of great articles you can write off of to get some publicity. I don't use that site anymore, so it is for sale. Just send me a PM. And you'll find me online. And I'm drinking Henry McKenna right now. And then I'm going to finish. I got, in honor of 1792, I got some Bourbon, which has nothing to do with 1792, but it reminded me of them.
Somewhat in the same family of brands, so close enough.
Yeah. So I guess that's going to be a lead-in for our first story tonight, because it's the one that I know we got to talk about it because it is news, and it's probably old news by now for pretty much everybody within the industry, or anybody that even it is somewhat familiar with. There you go. What happened? We talked about.
Yeah. There was an accident.
Yeah. Wait, what?
I think most of us here, our phones were buzzing. We had family sending us links as if we hadn't heard of it yet, right? But Warehouse 30 at Barton had collapsed. So I guess first we'll go around and see who got the most texts or links that were sent to them. Because Carrie, you actually posted something funny on Bourboner about a game, right?
Yeah, I said tonight you got to take a pour of bourbon for every time a friend or family member sent you a link to the article. I probably was in the 8 to 9 range between, friends that I've made through bourbon channels, and then non-friends, non-bourbon friends, just regular casual friends or family members that are like, wow, did you see this? And it's like yesterday they sent the link. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I had heard of that, but it's like with something, bourbon related news like that comes out, it fascinates people, I think. Mm-hmm. And they know that you're into bourbon and they can't wait to share it with you. And I got to make it act like that's the first time I've seen it from everyone. But yeah, I mean, if a dozen or so people probably sent me a link.
It shows you how your friends and family view you, because one piece of bourbon information hits the mainstream and they're like, oh, well, I know who I got to share this with. My alcoholic cousin who's writes and talks about bourbon way too much.
All the time.
Yeah.
Well, and did you have to drink twice if they did the joke about there's going to be the warehouse collapse surviving 1792?
Or link the picture of the bottle.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
actually had more people asking me, man, do you think you could get some of those barrels? I'm like, I doubt it. I doubt they'll, those are either gone or they're just going to go back into another warehouse. I don't think they'll let me drive my truck up there and just load a couple in the back and drive off really quick.
Yeah, it's not like they're damaged like couches that fell off of the back of a truck or something, right? Like these barrels can they can survive a lot. Like most of them are going to be just fine. I would say probably the majority of them are, except the ones that are busted and that are leaking into the river, right?
Somebody said they're calling this type of loss the gopher share.
Me and Kenny were driving back, and the local news are like, we've been having reports of a barrel or whiskey warehouse falling down. We've got reporters on their way. And I'm like, what are they going to do? Get there and be like, yes, it's falling down. Yeah. We confirmed it.
That's the drones. That's where the drones came in.
I was going to say, have you never watched your local news? That's what they do every single night. It's
Wow,
there's been a crash. Okay, well, we're standing out here on the side of the highway, and it's true. There is a crash. It does look massive. You kind of forget how big those warehouses are until you're like, oh, my gosh, that is a ton of barrels sitting on the ground. And that's only half of it.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was playing golf. Sorry, go ahead.
How many warehouses does Barton have? Like 7 or 8?
No, they have probably over 10, probably 15.
Oh, really? Okay.
They've got 45 acres worth of land over there, right? So they've got lots of room. And that's what I think people don't realize. There's so much talk on social media about, oh no, I can't believe what's going to happen, bourbon shortage. And everybody that's in here knows that's a drop in the bucket.
Most of it's brandy, because the bottom at Barton, only the first 5 floors are bourbon. The rest are brandy up on top.
Other way around.
What's the brandy
brand? Brandy's at the top, yeah.
Or brandy's at the top, yeah. Sorry.
What's the brandy?
You do bourbon tours and you walk around these rick houses that they're like, oh, this is 200 years old or 150 years old. You look at them, you're like, God, if any one of these things collapses, I'm dead. Anybody in that warehouse, thankfully nobody was in there, but if anyone was in there, I mean, there's thousands of tons of weight that will just destroy you. So it does make you think a little bit about the really old brick houses and through them. And, now might be running through the end of it, as we go in there, I want to be in the middle of this collapse.
Well, it's funny. I played golf with an engineer that you can trace it back, but he does work on warehouses. It's weird. But I was like, what the hell happened? He's like, oh, we know what happened. But it sounded like that some other contractors were used, and I don't know. That's just speculation, but they didn't listen to the original engineers.
Yeah, didn't Bourbon Truth write a post back in 2015 talking about some beetles that were causing issues, and it sounded like Barton was ignoring it, and
yeah, that's exactly what you were kind of leading me up to. Is there was that article, and anybody that is a fan of the show, they can go back and find that previous podcast with Bourbon Truth. We didn't really talk about it, but yeah, there was an article back in 2015. A lot of people linked to it on social media, and it just talked about these beetles essentially that eat through wood and leave these traces. It also talked about how they were doing tours in some of these warehouses. They had some people that were sort of, I'm going to say the wrong word. It's like entomologists or whatever, basically bug.
That's right. Entomologists. Very good.
Yeah. So basically bug doctors that were saying that, it's pretty much unsafe to be doing tours through here, to be doing anything like that. But it comes with a huge cost to be able to actually get rid of these beetles, because you actually have to empty out the entire rick house. You have to, basically fog it out or do whatever you can to get rid of the infestation. And then you have to replace all the beams and everything that these beetles have eaten through. And then you got to roll everything back in the rick house, right? they're talking like, I think like it was up to like $250,000 like per rick house is what it was looking at, maybe more than that. And so a lot of people just kind of turned a blind eye to it.
But now they're gonna have to build a structure to support the existing warehouse to get all the existing barrels out and then repair the warehouse. So
let's see which one costs more.
Yeah.
What do you do with all those barrels now? I mean, leave them out like tornado warehouse surviving? Like let them just, where you put it all?
And now they're getting fines because about like 1,000 fish have turned up dead in the river. So
I read that from Janet Patton today.
Yeah, a lot of my friends on Facebook, because I am from Bardstown, I have a lot of friends from. But anyways, they're posting pictures of it like, screw Barton, they're killing our fish. That's where my I grew up fishing and all this stuff. So.
Look, those fish
because it's leaking into the water.
Those fish went out as happy as they could have possibly gone out. Okay, they're not on the end of some hook
can be,
in a fish fryer. They went out happy as can be. So I don't feel bad.
Yeah, and like to go back to your question that you had asked earlier, it is Diageo that actually has a contract with Barton there where they store whiskey. Somebody put it on here. Fleischmann's Brandy is the actual one. So I was actually just there doing a barrel pick last week and got to talk to Josh, and thankfully I wasn't there that day because there would probably have been a little bit of chaos, but
you could have been first one reporting on the scene.
I could have.
It's Kenny from Bourbon Pursuit. We're live here.
Just like hustling out to the field real quick, be like, y'all gotta check this out. But
like Gary McCord or Flaherty, I'm live here with
like about a tornado or something.
So what did they say about the brandy? I kind of cut you off.
Oh, nothing. It's just they're just contracted through Diageo to keep aging brandy there. And then, like I said, Ryan, I think had it backwards. So like the top floor fours at the rick houses are actually $17.92. The bottom ones are brandy. I don't really know where very old Barton's actually within that mix either. I didn't really ask those questions, but now we have something to talk about next time. But with that, at least we're glad that everybody was safe. Nobody got hurt. But I think
for sure.
We could have
been much worse.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna be a wake up call to the rest of the industry that I think maybe they should go ahead and just pay somebody to go out there and tap a few beams and make sure that it's not going to fall over, right? So
the Busics are going to make even more money, or the Blinkos.
Yeah.
So speaking of Sazerac.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice transition.
I know, right? It's like, man, everything's just flowing tonight, guys. Like,
I just meant I'll get a pour from Bowman. That's all I meant.
Good deal. So let's go ahead and talk about this little next piece because it involves one of the closest members of this roundtable. So on June 14th, 2018, one of the panelists here on this roundtable actually countersued Sazerac and won. A quick summary of the decision kind of goes as follows. Will Arvin and Wes Murray are the guys that are behind Castle and Keys venture. And even though Marion Barnes is really the one we see on Instagram all the time. But during the period they were renovating, it was commonly referred to as the Old Taylor Distillery, or that spot formerly known as the Old Taylor Distillery, because they were still coming up with a brand name or trying to figure out some way of how you recognize it. Sazerac was not happy with this and eventually sued them for, I think, and he's going to probably correct me here, whether it was defamation of the name of Old Taylor, saying that it caused some brand confusion. So I'm going to let Brian sort of take it over from here and kind of give us a little bit of a recap of really kind of how this all sort of transpired and maybe some more of the nitty gritty details. And we'll ask some tough questions along the way here.
Sure. The Old Taylor Distillery was stopped distilling in 1972, and they still in Beams stored barrels there until the 90s when they abandoned it and moved everything away. And anyone who had been out there, and I know a lot of folks in Kentucky have been out there. It's kind of was the thing to do. It was apocalyptic. I mean, there was asbestos everywhere. There's roofs were caving in, floors were caving in. A few people had tried to start businesses there, and nothing ever started. One firm went in there and bought it just to harvest the wood from the rick houses and some of the brick, and that caused one of the warehouses to collapse. So it was just a mess, and no one wanted to touch it. But Will Arvin and Wes Murray came in and they sunk a ton of money into it and got the asbestos abatement folks out, and they repaired the roofs and the floors, and they've started Castle and Key. But Sazerac didn't like that they were referring to it as the historic Old Taylor Distillery. They didn't like that the sign was still above the front door that said the Old Taylor Distilling Company. They didn't like that the limestone had been carved on the side of the castle saying the Old Taylor Distillery 1887. They didn't like that one of the warehouses had 20-foot high letters that said Old Taylor. And so they got sued for trademark infringement because Sazerac from Beam bought the Old Taylor name in 2009. And then, of course, have started that's bottom shelf, but they started the E.H. Taylor brand back up. And they said it was trademark infringement. And last year, the district court disagreed and dismissed the case. And a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals agreed and said that it wasn't trademark infringement, and said that that Peristyle, Castle and Key had been fairly using the name E.H. Taylor and Old Taylor as a description, as a geographic descriptor of what the place is. And that's not trademark use. That's fine to do. A lot of people can imagine that the big guys with deep pockets can make it hurt for the new guys. And fortunately, we were able to turn the tables, and now we're comfortable in being able to say that this is the Old Taylor Distillery. This is the history that happened there. This is what E.H. Taylor did there, and it's not trademark infringement.
I guess I mean, you don't have to. And also, I need to pre-warn everybody, like if we ask a question and Brian is not legally or liable able to say it, then he doesn't have to answer this, right? So let's just make sure that we're ahead of this and we're not just oh, Brian, quit being a dick and just tell us, right? Like
it's a little bigger than that. Yeah. This isn't Judge Judy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess was there like some sort of thought process that as soon as they bought this, that like they expected people to go and start carving off the, as you had said, those big signs that say the Old Taylor Distilling Company, like right off the side in the limestone? Like what was their expectation? Like, I don't know how you could even say that.
Well, I don't think you can. And they didn't want the signs up, and that really creased them. And you can't change history. I mean, there's a lot of people know that E.H. Taylor has history at the place that's now Buffalo Trace. It used to be the OFC, the Old Fire Copper. That's essentially all gone except for the Bourbon Pompeii thing that they've been uncovering lately. But he's got some history there, no doubt. They've got history there. But where Taylor really made his mark on the bourbon world was at the Old Taylor Distillery. When he was at the OFC, he went bankrupt. He had to flee the country to avoid creditors. He was selling the same barrels twice to different buyers, and he was in trouble. And he had to get bailed out by George T. Stagg. They were in business for about 10 years, and they parted ways. And that's when Old Taylor was built as a castle. It existed as a distillery before that. But E.H. Taylor got together with his sons and built a new distillery there, the Castle. And that's where he sponsored the Bottle and Bond Act. That's where he made the brand that's known today as the Old Taylor brand. That's where he really made history. That's where he invented bourbon tourism by the way he built that distillery and the castle and the pergolas and he was bringing tourists in by train. He had a railroad station there called Taylorton Station, and he brought people in, and it was a destination spot. I mean, he's the guy who started bourbon tourism. He's responsible for that. Now we're comfortable in talking about that history.
So talk about what the Lanham Act is, because there was a link that was from the Open Circuit Court judge that you had actually sent us. So kind of give us some background about what that is and sort of how that played a role into all this as well.
Sure. Trademark law started with bourbon. I mean, it went hand in hand with bourbon. And as a shameless plug, in November of this year, you can find a book called Bourbon Justice that talks about the development of trademark law. But that was what we call common law. That's just where law sort of develops on its own through the courts. And the Lanham Act is a federal statute that really took over from the common law, and it defines what trademarks are and what trademark infringement is and what fair use of a name is that doesn't get you into trouble for trademark infringement. And so what Sazerac alleged here was that Castle and Key violated the Lanham Act, which is essentially trademark infringement. So whenever you hear Lanham Act, think trademarks. And if there's ever a complaint about the Lanham Act, someone is alleging that a trademark has been improperly used, which is what we call infringement.
Okay. So I guess there's a few good things that actually got brought up within the chat, which is probably good to run by you. One, Joshua Smith actually said, you don't see Heaven Hill going after Diageo, even though they have a 100-foot tall smokestack with the name Old Fitzgerald on it, right? Because they own that.
That's exactly right. And that's something that I brought up to the district court judge. I used that very example that he mentioned, that Heaven Hill isn't doing that. And when you go to Stitzel-Weller, they have a sign about this was Pappy's office. And you get to say that because that's a historical fact. You get to leave up the road that Stitzel-Weller is on is Old Fitzgerald Road. And you've got the Old Fitzgerald smokestack. You don't need to take any of those things down because those are historical locations and geographic places and true, accurate facts.
And so there's some more that's going on between Kevin and Josh, and they're sort of talking about the Diageo actually owning Bullet and kind of having that tour and calling it the Bullet experience at Stitzel-Weller, right? And having that sort of name, even though Weller in the name is actually owned by Sazerac, right?
Right.
And so Josh was saying that apparently there was also a sign of some scuffs that happened with the Blade and Bow release. So was there something that happened within Diageo and Stitzel-Weller at that point, or Diageo and Sazerac because of the Stitzel-Weller name?
Well, and it went beyond that too. I forget which Orphan Barrel release it was, but there was one that was distilled at what at the time was called the George T. Stagg Distillery. And I remember, was it Forged Oak? Yeah, that might have been. That would have been old enough to be that. And I remember reading, not really hearing anything confirming it, but reading that Sazerac was bent out of shape about that. But again, it's a geographic fact. You can say where something was distilled, and you can use the Stitzel-Weller name because that's a place. And Luxco did this too for a while with their Rebel Yell brand. I remember when they first came out with Rebel Reserve, the back of the label said distilled under the old Weller tradition. They're even using the name. It's a historical fact. You get to say that. You can't call your brand Old Weller, but you can talk about what the historical background is.
And so before we actually started the recording and press publish, you had also mentioned something that Sazerac sort of does that you were actually able to bring up, and the fact that if you look at the Old Taylor bottle today that sits on the shelf, they actually have an image of the actual Old Taylor distillery still on the bottle, right? So kind of talk about that and how that played into the case as well.
Yeah, so if you guys want to lean over low to the bottom shelf and look at a bottle of Old Taylor, you look in the background,
here, right? Man,
yeah. It's not even being we're attacking it.
Pick a man while he's down. Jeez.
You'll see an image of the castle. If you've been to Castle and Key or seen any pictures, you kind of know what the outline of the castle is. And if you look at the background of an Old Taylor bottle, you can see the peristyle Castle and Key castle. It's an image that's on there. So one of the counterclaims in the case was that if anyone's causing confusion, it's Sazerac who's causing confusion by their what's called trade dress, by what they have on their label. They're showing an image of a distillery that doesn't distill Old Taylor. And if anything is going to cause confusion, it's that. Castle and Key's not causing any confusion because it's only using the name in a historically accurate geographic sense.
So before we keep going down this rabbit hole too far, was there something that you looked at with all these arguments that was sort of like nail in the coffin? Like, that's it. Like, we've got this. Like, is there one of those defining moments for you?
Well, it was really early on. I had a post right when the complaint was filed that I put up, and I identified right away that this is history. And what I said in that early post was, you can't erase history. And that's all Castle and Key has ever done, is use the Old Taylor name and E.H. Taylor in a historic geographic sense. And it's fair to do that. It has to be fair to do that, because you can't change what history is. I mean, it gets to being the verge of Orwellian when you start rewriting history.
It's like if somebody were to sell an apple at a store, then Apple can come in and say, we have the name Apple, right?
Because you're selling an apple.
Right.
I got
Great
you.
analogy. Way to chime in. I love it.
Now, question on this. Do you think it was something, with like the George T. Stagg and Sazerac didn't seem to go after Diageo on that? Do you think it was something where Sazerac thought, hey, you know what, these are smaller guys, we can just kind of win this one pretty easy and be done with it and keep going? Or does this kind of set up for future lawsuits when the smaller guy realizes, oh no, we don't have to just kind of roll over and take the signs down?
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon. If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription.
Do you think it was something where Sazerac thought, hey, you know what, these are smaller guys, we can just kind of win this one pretty easy and be done with it and keep going? Or does this kind of set up for future lawsuits when the smaller guy realizes, oh no, we don't have to just kind of roll over and take the signs down?
Well, I tell you, I can't guess what Sazerac's thinking.
Yeah.
I can look at the other threats and lawsuits that Sazerac has filed, though. And one of those, I showed the bottle that I'm drinking tonight, Wilderness Trail. Some people might remember that its first name was Wilderness Trace. And Sazerac objected to that they were using the name Trace, which to me is either a generic name or at least an accurate name of what they call trails, the old animal trails. But Wilderness Trace decided not to fight and to change their name to Wilderness Trail. And there's other cases that Sazerac filed. I mean, they sued Brown-Forman for their Tennessee Fire because they thought it was too close to their cinnamon whiskey. They sued a Canadian whiskey that was called Bison Ridge, because they dared use a name that, or I guess an image that looked like a buffalo, or another word that people don't know the difference between a bison and a buffalo. And so they sued them. There's a lot of lawsuits out there by Sazerac, and a lot get and they win a lot. The only ones I'm aware where Sazerac loses were when they had Ridgemont or Ridgewood Reserve, and Brown-Forman beat them on that because of Woodford Reserve. And then when they left the Kentucky Distillers Association and they still tried to use the words Kentucky Bourbon Trail, they weren't allowed to do that. So they're pretty active in litigation.
Just get along. I mean, it's just bourbon. Come on.
I agree. I mean, this should the Castle and Key should have been embraced by Sazerac.
Yeah.
There's shared history there. I think they both benefit by using that shared history. Just like there's a lot of cooperation among the distillers, and this would have been a perfect time for more cooperation.
Eric Rogue has, or Rogie, I can't say his last name properly, but he has one more question before we start moving on here. And it says, do you think Sazerac has the most lawyers in bourbon?
Ooh, tough call. My guess is probably Diageo.
Yeah.
Can I make one point real quick, just so people, I think most of the time when people think Sazerac, they think Buffalo Trace, right? Because Buffalo Trace is the most.
I think Fireball.
Well, right, besides you, because you drink that all the time. But most people think Buffalo Trace probably and think Mark Brown and those guys. Those guys have nothing to do with it. There's a corporation of people who I don't even know if they're probably down in New Orleans or something. But I know that BT are some good folks, and when this kind of stuff goes down with Sazerac, I hope people don't get the reputation that it's Buffalo Trace doing this stuff when it's some other greedy people. And some other place. So I don't know. That's just kind of the way I feel about that is I think sometimes probably the employees themselves are kind of sitting there and they know that it's making news that Sazerac is suing for a name they don't even use anymore. And it's like, it gives them a bad rap. But at the end of the day, there are some really rich people trying to get even more rich and using their power hunger to try to do stuff that's not even necessary.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I doubt it's Freddie or anybody else like that. It's over at Buffalo Trace that's actually working there day in, day out. Susanna and Bo.
Harlan's pretty cutthroat. He told me I was going to die.
He told you that on episode 2, right?
Yeah. He's like, what do you do for a living? And I was like, he's like, that'll kill you. And I was like, thanks a lot.
Oh, man. All right. So, we'll wrap it up with if anybody else has any more law questions they want to kind of talk about this case or anything else you want to throw by Brian, because this was great and hopefully he doesn't need to go and make any quick last minute annotations to his book he has to release to slide this one in.
I hope not. So, I've got the proof right now. So
I got a question, Brian.
Yeah.
So when Castle and Key bought that and they obviously did bought they probably did a very extensive trademark search. Why wouldn't that have been brought up then, I guess, when they were originally buying this property or whatever?
Well, it's two separate issues. You've got trademarks on the one side and you've got geographic facts on the other. So Castle and Key has never used those names, Old Taylor or E.H. Taylor, as a trademark. It's not going to be on any of their whiskey bottles. They're not going to call any of their bourbon anything to do with Taylor. So it's really just defining the geographic location. It's using it as a descriptor.
Gotcha.
So it's you never do a trademark search because you're not using it as a trademark.
Gotcha.
Last question that's coming from Druther 007. So did Sazerac have to pay Castle and Key attorney fees? Was there a settlement that you can talk about?
No, it's really, really hard to get attorney's fees in the United States. The basic rule here is that each side pays their own way. And in a case like this, that's really disappointing. Because you've got one side with a lot more money than the other. and both have to pay their own way.
So really, the only thing that came out of it was just basically the way that says like, okay, we were right all along. That's it, right?
Yeah, and so we get to say we were right from the beginning, and we get to tell people the history, and we get to leave the sign up, and
and it costs us a shit ton of money,
and the money's out the door. Yeah,
good for them.
And you said they're not using any names, they're not using anything that's really on that trademark side. So there's really no reason for them to work cautiously.
Who's this guy?
I mean,
who's this guy? Hold on.
I didn't want to interrupt Brian. He was really on a roll there.
Nick, get yourself in real quick.
This is Nick from Breaking Bourbon, by the way. Hello, everybody. Sorry, I was running a little late. Had a 5-year-old birthday party, dinner, and movie that ran a little longer than anticipated, but Incredibles 2 was actually pretty good. So
Here's a good one.
I won't give anything away, but
It's not bad.
Spoilers.
It's not bad.
So anyway, go back to the question.
Yeah, so I think I heard it, Nick. So yeah, as long as it's not used as on a label, as a brand, it's not being used in a trademark way. So there's reason to be cautious, I guess. It's a reason to not use it on a label. That might be as one of the Sixth Circuit judges said during oral argument, he thought that might be infringement. But that's not what the plan has ever been. That's not what any of the testimony ever was. And in fact, it was just the opposite. They don't plan on using the Old Taylor name or the Taylor name or the E.H. Taylor name as the brand.
So was a way for you to be like, instead of just paying me, I'll take like 8 barrels of bourbon. Like, was that, did that ever cross your mind?
Yeah, I'd like some.
And you?
I've heard some really good things about what Marianne is distilling, but and I know some people have done barrel picks there. I haven't even done one, so I can't say I've even tasted any of the distillate, but I've heard good things about it.
So I've done a quote unquote pick there before, right? So, but the pick isn't necessarily a pick. You essentially get to go and fill your own barrel. And so you get the hose and you bring it over, you turn it on, fill your barrel, bung it out and write your name on it and roll it on over to
and write
that massive warehouse. And then you sit there and now you hurry up and wait.
And you wait for what, 4 years or how long? As long as you want?
As long as you want. Yeah.
Well, let me show you something to close this out, Kenny. Let me show you what I got here. It's a 17-year-old Prohibition era, distilled in 1916, bottled in 1933.
That's ridiculous.
Wow. That's awesome.
So this is the real Old Taylor. And once my clock runs out that their time to try to appeal to the United States Supreme Court is done, they get 90 days to do that. Once that passes, this will be opened and any of the bourbon.
And we're all invited?
we're all going to be in.
Yeah,
I'll be at Lake Forest.
if we can plan on 90 days from June 14th, whoever's here, we'll open that.
I'm in.
Let's see. Actually, isn't that Bourbon and Beyond weekend? Perfect timing.
Is it really perfect timing?
I think it is.
Hey,
that would, June to September would be.
I mean, you just bring it to St. Matthews, so we don't have to go all the way to Middleton.
No, that's awesome. And then you might be able to. You could probably just buy a few of those bottles, and you can write them off as essentially research costs, right?
Sure, research, right? That's right.
All right. So let's go ahead and we'll move it on because we talked about that a lot. And now I think we're going to get into the next piece of it. We're really talking about the releases that are coming out because this is, as we said, we're starting to hit the front end of it. Things are hitting the TTB. Things are starting to hit the shelves a little bit early. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is Kentucky Owl Batch 2. We had talked about it close to the end of 2017 and talked about, Kentucky Owl Batch 1 really knocked it out of the park, right? Kentucky Owl Rye Batch 1 really knocked it out of the park because it was a really good whiskey. It was a little bit higher price point than we all kind of really wanted in that $130, $140 range. And all of a sudden, and not only that, is there was tons of it, right? I mean, at that point, like anybody could have as much Kentucky Owl Rye as they possibly could afford. Some states had more than others, but it wasn't too hard to find it. It didn't have any value really over its retail and secondary just because of the sheer amount of it. And like I said, it was a solid whiskey. Now batch 2 is getting ready to come out, and it's actually hit a few states already. And there's been some rumors that the suggested retail price is actually increased to about, I think it's like $189.99 or $190, and that's almost a 50% increase. It's a 50% increase than what we had seen last year. However, I have seen some posts that people said that they were able to buy it for $160. So I want to kind of gauge your all's thoughts on why go ahead and raise it. Do you think it's going to be a little more scarce? Do they think that, oh hell, people are idiots, they're going to buy it anyway? Like, what's your thoughts?
Yes.
Your second point.
I think that when you're able to sell as much as they were able to sell, there were none that sat on shelves. It flew off shelves. So, they're going to, sure that they may have less, but why not? I mean, it's one of those things, we hate it as consumers, but if you're the person responsible for it and you sell out rye in your first release, if people are going to pay the price, then, unfortunately, if the demand is always going to exceed the supply in that case. And if it does, they're going to raise it. I mean, it's up to us to try it and say, this is not worth $189 and we're not going to buy it anymore. And, but I mean, from his standpoint, with such a, with it being such a huge success, I mean, I don't think I can blame him for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're looking for kind of a, market equilibrium to say at what point does it sit on the shelves? At what point is it, well, I won't name any high-end releases that sit on shelves anymore, but won't throw anyone under the bus. But it was gone. I mean, and there was, there was a lot of that whiskey, but it was also really good too. So, if I never really heard a bottle count. Did anyone else hear a bottle count on that one?
I'm just guessing, but it's based on how many came to Georgia.
Yeah, there's, so if they had that many bottles.
What was the guess? I didn't hear it.
20,000.
20,000.
Yeah. I would probably push that even higher based on, I mean, I had a retailer here who he gets a lot of good stuff, but I think he ended up getting something like 30 cases or something of it, 6-pack cases. So I don't know. I just
40K range then.
Yeah, that would be closer to my guess. But when you sell through it, and they're just going to continue. Like we said, this isn't charity. This isn't goodwill stuff. This is it's a business, and if they can get more money for a product, we don't like it as consumers, but that's what's going to happen. And more people are flooding into bourbon, buying these high-end bourbons, because automatically when somebody walks into a store and they see $200 bottle on the shelf, they assume it's better. And that's just a fact. If it's better than, Pikesville that sits there for, $50-$60, whatever it is, that's kind of our own choice and preference. But for now, I think the price is just going to continue to go up.
Yeah, we keep buying, they're going to keep raising.
Yeah.
So it's just going to take us consumers not buying it, which is not going to happen because everyone's like, oh, there's something new out, gotta get it, got to try it.
For every one of us that says, all right, I'm not buying any more stupid releases anymore, there's 45 new guys coming into whiskey, or people coming into whiskey who have never heard of any of this controversy. They've probably never even watched a Bourbon Pursuit episode, which is crazy.
That's unheard of.
But they walk into a store and the owner's like, oh man, you got to try this. It's $200. You're going to love it. It's the best rye I've ever had. It just won some spirit award.
Double gold.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that sort of goes back to the old thing of price being in perception, right? That if you're paying more for it, it has to be better, right? You got to give it to them. That I still think that the 11-year age statement is still on the bottle. However, it has been the proof has now gone down. I actually have a batch 2 in front of me, batch 1 in front of me. It's 110.6, and I believe batch 2 is at like 101 proof. So either it was watered down to make it basically get out there. Batch 2
wasn't barrel proof either.
It wasn't? Okay.
No.
It started at like 130 proof.
Come on,
I think
Kenny,
it was.
Guys, I don't have a memory like you all do, okay?
Like 130 proof or something. So it's kind of interesting that they would drop the proof some, because I'm assuming, but I assume they kind of played around with it a little bit.
It reminds me of Old Fitzgerald and this fancy bottle that came out, and everybody went and sapped up these bottles at 130 plus retail, and then you finally opened it and you tried it and you're like, God, that's not that good.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter.
Although I disagree on the first. I haven't tried the second release of the rye yet, but the first rye I would probably
it's fantastic.
buy, even 2 or 3 more bottles if I could at $150. I think it was.
No, I know. I meant the old Fitz.
But the old Fitz, oh yeah, no, that's a whole different story. But
What's interesting about Kentucky Owl though was it was pretty reasonably available for a while. Yeah. I mean, he had, at least I think it was in 25 states. This batch 2 is going to be in around 35. I was just doing a quick count. So there's going to be a little less of it. It's going to be in more states. And it was available. People were talking about it. Some people said, no, it's not available at all. Well, unfortunately, in some places, it just didn't exist. But I know here, I could think of at least 5 or 6 stores that had it for a month or two. And I'm in New York, right? And it was pretty much priced to MSRP and had it and liked it. So then it became, okay, is it worth the 115, 120 that they're charged around here for it? So that's what it came down to. But at the end of the day, too, it's not necessarily us who's buying it, kind of trickles back up because it passes through that channel from the distillers or the producer's standpoint. It's sold, it's gone, right? So they've said goodbye to it. Now the retailers are maybe holding it. We know what some of those are that retailers are, kind of holding on to. And for the time being, I think that we're not really seeing that where retailers are too gun shy about that. I mean, I think the retailers want something that's special because they're having people come in all the time asking for Pappy and antique collection and all those other things. And they want to be able to say, yes, I've got, because any given retailer may only have a few bottles of it, or they're big enough volume that they're going to be able to move 20 bottles of it if that's what they get, right? So it's just, the market is where it is, and it's not at all surprising to see it coming out at this price, especially in more markets and with less production. And with a good name, and they're riding in on that. They got to take advantage of it, strike when the iron's hot.
But isn't this kind of what we want from a release, that it's somewhat available, the quality is really good? Yeah, you got to pay a little bit more, but I think all of us, if they said, all right, Thomas Handy is going to be available, as long as you kind of get there somewhat in the general release date, but you're going to pay a little bit more for it, and that's it. I think all of us say, yeah, I'll pay $130 for Thomas Handy or a Stag or something like that. So I mean, I'm not upset about $200 is kind of pushing that. My threshold is not quite 200, but it probably will be, just the way prices are going.
Has your threshold creeped, Blake?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
everybody's creeping.
5
years ago, 5 years ago it was $50, right?
Yeah. Well, that's, you think even a few years back, we're telling stores they're gouging for charging $109 for a Stag. And now that just seems stupid, but yeah.
Which is why, that's why those 2 releases, I think, still to this day are so highly sought after, is because Buffalo Trace still keeps the retail price. And now, granted, you got to find a store willing to sell at retail price. But when you do, you're paying what you should be paying for the whiskey inside. I mean, if Eagle Rare 17, if you can get that for under $100 these days, I mean, it's an awesome deal. Saz 18, and even if you can get a Pappy 15 at what, 109 was retail this year, and you open and actually drink it, I mean, there's value inherent in that. So you look at these other releases, these other people that try to keep up, and like I look back at Whistle Pig and the Old Fitz and all these releases, the PHC 11, the Parker's Heritage last year, the 11 year. I mean, it was good, but $130 for essentially Elijah Craig barrel proof. I don't know. To me, it's like
younger.
Yeah, a year younger, and it's just we pay for it because we think it's going to be the hottest thing. The fear of missing out always drives the bourbon world, is the fear of missing out. 100%.
But how odd is that too, that we expect something good like that to be gone immediately? I mean, think about Scotch, think about the other, you go in and there's $200 bottles, there's $2,000 bottles. I mean, they're there all the time. Sometimes the same bottles. I know people that are buying that regularly, and that's what they drink. But in bourbon, it's like, oh, there's a $200 bottle. It's sitting there. It might have been there a month or whatever, but we expect it to be gone immediately because there's just nothing up in that tier. This idea that stuff's going to hit the retailers and be gone immediately. I feel that's definitely not sustainable. And it makes sense that price is going to move to the point where they're able to hold some kind of inventory and it's able to move in a reasonable way that what they're used to. They don't buy product and have it all go out the same day. They expect to hold product for a while, and they expect for some high end like that to not get sold, probably the day that it comes out, unlike bourbon, which is just an anomaly to me.
Bourbon is not even about shelf anymore. It's not about the shelf items unless it's a store pick. I mean, you go through store after store after store, so many products on the shelf, and it's the same thing, right? So if you're hunting, you're looking for something that is not on the shelf of every store around.
Exactly.
And that's what it is now. It's the release that's not sitting on every shelf. No matter what the price is, there are people who will buy it just because they don't see it anywhere else.
Yeah, and if it's on the shelf, I'm only going to pay like $20 or $30. It's like, it's so stupid, but yeah.
Well, I drink Henry McKenna all day long. I mean, no, Henry McKenna sucks, but we don't. The deal, Brian. We don't talk about Henry McKenna.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah, we don't talk positively about.
There you go. We got to keep downplaying it.
Yeah. But there is so much there that is good and available for a lower price. People just don't want it. They want to have what they can't get.
Yeah. And social media is just like exacerbated the problem, it's because you see people taking pictures, taking a drink or selling. You're like, oh my gosh, I got to have this. So what,
Is it
Do they not want it though? I mean, people are buying that stuff too. It's just that it's getting replenished more quickly, right? I mean, the majority of what I have and what I drink is under $50 on a regular basis. I mean, I have those other high tier bottles, but I'm not drinking those every day. So I think sometimes I know I had that, I guess, newbie fever at one point where they could point me in the direction of anything that was expensive. And that's what you bought or that's what you wanted because you felt like it was rare and it was going to be gone. But I feel like that is fleeting. That does go away, outside of the people that are maybe flipping and taking advantage of that on the long term. I think at some point people they get it the same way that we do. And you start to look a little more seriously at that. I think that initial run is short. It's just, we're seeing a lot of people come into it quickly. So there's a constant new flow of people that, they just point them to something that looks fancy and has some good reviews and it's expensive and they're going to buy it.
All right. So before we run out of too much time, I want to kind of continue this because let's face it, let's be real. All of us are going to go out. We're going to buy a Kentucky Owl Batch 2 because we need to fund these roller coasters that are being built at the Stoley Park. It's going to happen. And just face it.
Yeah, Kenny, I need you to buy some so I can buy one from you. I don't feel like shopping.
All right, so let's kind of move on to one of the last topics I want to talk about. And this is a whiskey that we had talked about the 11-year, but it's a whiskey that it garners a lot of attention in the whiskey world when you see Parker's Heritage Collection, when it either goes up for sale or whether it's a release every single year. However, the past few years have seemed a little bit, I don't know,
lackluster.
Very lackluster, right? And this year is probably not going to be much different. And so this year is the Parker's, I think this is what, PhD 12? And this is the Orange Curacao finish.
Curacao.
It's not my flavor, right?
Did you say Curacao?
Curacao. Listen,
we're from Kentucky.
Just let it fly. All right.
Which is funny that Ryan was the one calling you out. You said it wrong.
It's like
bar sounds say that I'm saying it wrong, right?
It's like Versailles and Versailles.
Yeah, and you just started over so you can edit that first one out.
We're gonna let that one ride.
Just say it right a couple times. You could.
It's like Curacao shit.
Hey, let me say this about the Curacao. Do y'all remember the Parker's malt? And the Parker's malt was Parker 9, I think. Parker's 9.
Yep, or 10.
Maybe it was 10. Yeah, and everybody was not looking forward to it. And what happened? People actually didn't overpay for it. I think you can still get them on secondary markets right around retail price. I think in this case, nobody's really looking forward to Orange Curacao cured stuff. I mean, they're sitting on so much rye. Can you not just put out a barrel proof?
That just seems like a home run, either an aged rye or a barrel proof rye. That just
put out a damn rye. I mean, nobody wants malt XCF is the same thing, right? So people have been saying Parker's Heritage XCF because they finish their Willet and Orange Curacao barrels and
Grand Marion.
I thought it was
Grand say it wrong probably, but Grand something.
Grand Marnier.
Who cares about that? Really? Like, do we need to reinvent the wheel? Just put out the good bourbon that you have sitting across gigantic warehouses over there and stop putting the crap in Orange Curacao barrels because I'm not buying the shit.
Which didn't,
I bet you did.
Didn't Heaven Hill basically say that the Willet XCF was their release anyway or something?
Really?
I mean, it could have been.
Yeah.
It was also a rye that was finished in those Willet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
And that was around $130 too. So that was around the same price as Parker's.
But it was really good. I mean, I'll try this.
I liked it too.
I didn't like it. I wasn't a big fan of the Willet XCF, right? I mean, that was also at the time when everybody was, at least, some people that I knew were like really getting ramped up in bourbon. And I mean, we had access to XCF like any day of the week if we wanted to, right? You just go to the distillery and just go pick up 6 bottles if you wanted. And the only thing that was really the selling point, because it had these stupid dangling like Godfather like hands on it, right? And like people ate it up, right? Don't get me wrong, like it's all cool. At the end of the day, and people really eat it up. But for me, that taste just wasn't there for me. I was just like, this is not the whiskey that I enjoy. And don't get me wrong, there's people that do, and good for them. But for me, that's just not my bag. So
I just wish, like Carrie said, just put out. The Heaven Hill juice from 8 to like 15 years is so good. Why not just do a really good
barrel? 24.
No. That's bad.
No, it's not. It's crazy.
That's really bad.
Carrie, that's why you never come in any barrel picks with us, because you think that's actually a good whiskey.
It's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. It is polarizing. There are people who either love it or they hate it. There are a lot more people that love it than you would think. And I think it's a fantastic whiskey.
Well, anyways, just like you said, do an 8 to 12 year or something like, gosh, just do something so simple but so good. A barrel proof, the best Elijah Craig barrel proofs out there, or Henry McKenna ones. They got so much of it. Just do that. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid, right?
If you look at a lot of the early releases of Parker's, the 27 year, you've got blend and mash bills. You've got some of these that
they're just epic. I hate to use the word epic, but they're great.
People dug them. But I think the problem is that, well, A, you kind of had to think about doing that years ago if you're going to release it. But B, I don't know if their strategy is that they don't want to do the same thing twice, right? And so that could possibly be it too.
Well, then bring a rye.
They haven't done a rye.
Do the rye.
Yeah. Bring a rye.
Well, I hope they listen to this podcast and then they'll be like, well, damn it, why didn't we think of that first, right?
I'm sure they're like, idiots, we have this planned out 10 years in advance. The rye's coming in 2023, but we've got 14 different finishes before that. So.
I mean, they've done the wheat, for crying out loud. Give us a rye. I mean, I was a big fan of the wheat, but give us a rye. I'm with you guys.
I told Bernie Lubers.
Don't call them Bernie Lubers. It's Bernie
Lubers.
Orange.
I told him y'all need to do a rye. He said, I don't have any control. I'm like, bullshit, man. You're a big dog over there.
Listen to the people.
You gotta wonder why they're not, though. I mean, is it just timing? Do they think they're going to get more out of it by delaying? What's their read on the market? Because they know they could drop one and people would be all over it.
Yeah, but they know people are going to be all over it no matter what, because everyone wants the lineup. I mean, they could say, hey, it's PHC White Dog. It's going to sell out, guaranteed. So... still not going to sit on a shelf.
I mean, it is a cool bottle, right? Like it's a pretty sweet looking bottle. It's cool to have in your collection.
Oh, it's my favorite one. I love the Parker's bottles.
I will say they're relatively easy to get where I am. I always have a crack at it around MSRP. It's unlike a lot of other stuff that's coming out now that disappears immediately. But for whatever reason, people just aren't after it. So that is refreshing that it's not too crazy, at least in some places. Although we get Four Roses releases here like a year after they release. So go figure. They're always
they're very easy to stack too, unlike Old Forester birthday bourbon. I have shelf space with this stupid fat bottom bottle.
So there's a few good comments that are coming here. Joshua Smith said maybe we'll get a Parker's Heritage that'll come in like an orange juice carton.
Capri Sun.
Let's see. Chris Haynes said we need that 16-year rye finished in crystal Pepsi casks.
Yeah, the clear Pepsi.
Yeah, Pepsi free.
Yeah, it's all going to be sugar free for sure. So last one that I want to hit on, because I know we're creeping up in that hour, but this is one we have to talk about because it's Booker's. Like, everybody loves Booker's because it's cask strength, it's unfiltered, it's uncut. But the Booker's 30th announcement that originally came out saying it was going to be a 16-year. But Blake actually sent an email out this past week. He got some clarification from Fred. And so I'm going to let him kind of give us a recap of really what's happening with this release.
Yeah, so I should pull this up just so I don't screw anything up. But basically what they said was, hey, we're tasting it and it's not that great. We decided that we're going to add in some 9-year, and now it's going to be comprised of about 70% 9-year bourbon, 30% 16-year. Just got a little too over oaked, which is interesting. You know, I could see if they said, hey, we're going to blend in some, but 70%, that's a pretty wide margin to be off by. But you know, I don't know. It's a little bizarre to me. And so what I'm thinking happened was, and I've kind of talked to a few people, and they're basically saying like, yeah, I'm not sure how this got through the first round of testing because it was just way too woody and not that great. So it is kind of cool that they would pull back and say, hey, look, you know, we're going to blend some in here, as great as 16-year-old would have sell. But you kind of get, of course, everyone's going to come out and say, oh, they're going after more money. I don't know if they're going after more money, but I guarantee you every retailer, every distributor in the country, once they announced it, said, I'll take 4,000 cases.
As many as you can send.
Yeah. And then they realize, oh, man, now we've got a product that is not that great, and we don't think it's that great. We've got 40 times the demand of bottles we have with just the 16-year-old. You know, they're in a really tight spot at that point. So I think this was kind of a way to try to save face of, hey, let's blend in some of the 9-year, and not really blend in some of the 9-year. Let's blend in some of the 16 to a 9-year-old product, get something we like, have much more of it to sell. So I don't know. It's a little disappointing that we don't get to see what a Booker's 16-year-old tastes like. But it sounds like it didn't taste good. So I don't know if we should be disappointed in that. You don't see that a lot from a giant like Beam. You know, Beam's $1 billion market cap. They're one of the biggest. To see them kind of backpedal like that, it just seemed a little funny. So I don't know if maybe somebody jumped the gun on the release or what, but you know, you're going to have people who automatically come down on, oh, the accountants got involved. And as an accountant, I take offense to that because, you know,
bean counter,
we don't screw everything up, but no. So I think it was a mix. I think I said this in the post. It's still the release I'm most excited for this year, no matter what. The last 3-4 Booker's limited editions have been some of my favorite whiskey release. So we'll see what it tastes like.
I mean, that is true. They have a pretty good pedigree of putting out pretty good releases for Booker's, and I think they probably want to continue that streak, right? I don't think they want to become the next Parkers at this point.
Maybe blue Curacao for that 16 years, not orange or blue.
And that's kind of the thing. And I think I don't remember if I put this on Twitter, but if you think about it, if they just would have come out and said this Booker's 30th is going to be a blend of 9-year-old barrels and 16-year-old barrels, everyone would have still been really excited. It's the fact that they put it out and then pulled back on it a little bit. You know, you think about it like when the Al Youngs came out and it's like there's a 23-year-old. Well, there was maybe 2 barrels of a 23-year-old in there, and
just itty bitty
probably 2 gallons left of it. But everyone was talking about, man, there's 23-year-old OBS. Was it OBSK or I forget what it was, but anyways, it's in there. So they kind of would have had that same deal if it would have come out initially. That it's going to be a blend of 70% 9-year-old, 16 year, or 30% 16 year. But the fact that kind of came out, backtracked, that just gives the public perception a little different spin.
Robert, go ahead. I was going to say, Robert Daly had a pretty funny comment. It said, nothing says, let's celebrate our 30th year like releasing a 9-year-old bourbon. Well, sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
Well, everyone wondered why the Knob Creek lost its 9-year-old age statement. They had to save up.
Yeah, but hey, what about Russell Reserve 2002, man?
Let's talk about that in a minute. Hold on. We're still on this.
Well, I can go to sleep at some point. This beauty doesn't happen without sleeping.
Okay. You gotta wait a minute. Ryan, go ahead. What you were about to say?
Well, this comment goes back to the Parkers. I had a buddy text me. Carrie's palate is that of a cat. Old sandpaper tongue. Parker's 24 is so crap. Just thought I had to say that.
That was perfect timing, actually.
That
worked
nice.
great.
Yeah.
Cut the man off, then you
bring him down.
And wasn't Booker's 25th about 10 years?
No, it was 13, wasn't it?
Was it 13?
Oh, man.
I can't remember.
Let me go pull a bottle. Hold on.
But I mean, it is fun to actually see. Some of these Booker's releases. I mean, you guys said it, like they've been home runs, every single one of them, and all of them fetch a pretty good penny on the secondary market. And even them coming out with Booker's Rye last year, they price it pretty heavily at $300, and people ate it up. There's probably some hesitation in some people, but at some point the secondary market's going to let you know exactly what you have here, because the word's going to get out. So I hope that by being able to add in these 9-year-old batches, that they are able to extend the product a little bit more, but as well as make it pretty good. So
Booker's 25th was
9 to 11.
9 to 11. Yeah. So, I mean, that makes this release even more exciting, because honestly, that's probably top five bourbons right there with Booker's 25th. So
if it comes down to taste,
I like 9 year.
If it tastes as good as that did, that'd be fantastic.
Bring it.
All right. So we're gonna get one more minute on each one of these, because I know there's 4 releases that are coming out. So we're gonna only talk about 1 minute. Carrie, you started it. Talk about Russell's Reserve 2002. Go.
I want to buy 5 of them, and I want to write down. I can't wait.
It's already come and gone from Louisville. I missed the boat, and I'm not going to get one. So
I do have a secret insider information about it.
Tell us.
There is more. So the bottle was the TTB label said 2,500 bottles or something like that. There is actually more than that TTB label, just to let you know.
How many more?
Doesn't matter.
I'm not going to tell you guys. It's a secret that I was instilled, but there is more than the TTB label. I'll tell you that.
Well, they're gone from Louisville, so Kenny and I are out. And Ryan.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
Now I have to drive down to Atlanta, because apparently they're just plentiful. They just sit on the shelves, right?
Well, I have 7 right now, so I'm trying to buy the 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Aren't they like $500?
I don't know.
I'll trade you a Roundtable Buffalo Trace for it, Carrie.
Yeah.
No, I sold all
Those
mine.
are worth $140, right?
I sold all mine. I don't need any more.
Yeah. You and Dixon are driving Lambos now after selling all that bourbon, right? All right. So next one we'll hit on Wild Turkey Revival. Anybody had it yet?
Nope.
Well, I'm supposed to get a sample. I haven't gotten it yet.
All right. Well, we'll hit that one again. I know you can still find on the shelves. It's like $130. It's like sherry cask finish or something like that.
Yeah, Oloroso.
Oloroso. That's right. Next one that's starting to hit shelves pretty much everywhere. I think people are really starting to eat it up. Is just Knob Creek Cask Strength Rye. It seems to be pretty plentiful. People are digging it.
I like it a lot.
Hard to go wrong with a Cask Strength Rye.
Yeah, I did a Knob Creek Rye pick, and we had like 5-6 barrels to choose from, and I mean they were all really, really good. I mean they're doing something right there on their rye.
I mean, so when you do those rye picks at Knob Creek, aren't they only like 6 years old or something like that? They're not old.
Some were 5, some were 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty young, but and they were all about high 120s on proof.
Mm-hmm.
But all really, I mean, tough to choose from. All really good.
All right.
You get a lot of variation with those, Brian, or were they?
There wasn't a ton. Not on the ones we had. I mean, there were. I mean, we're enough to be able to decide, but all good. I mean, I would have taken any of them really.
All right. And so last one we're going to hit on is there. If you haven't been paying attention and you don't know anything about reading TTB releases or anything like that, Heaven Hill is also releasing a 27-year whiskey relatively soon, only going to be available in 5 states. And I think MSRP is like $300 or $400.
I want 5.
Yeah, we all at least want 2, right? So no idea if you're going to see it. I don't remember what states it is, but it's only like in 5 states, something like that, as well as the MSRP is up there. But it's a 27-year. If that rings anything like Parker's Heritage 27-year, that means you're going to be in for a treat.
I'd like that treat.
That's a fantastic older bourbon. I mean, I think trying to think of older bourbons I've had, I feel like that's north of 20. That's probably the best one I can think of right now.
Is the Parker's?
The Parker's, yeah. That's really good.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and we'll wrap it up because we are definitely over the hour mark. So I will go ahead and let you all go around the table and tell you, or just kind of announce where you blog and where people can find more about you. So Brian, we'll go ahead and let you go first.
All right. I'm Brian with Sipp'n Corn, and find me on mostly Twitter, a little bit on the Google blog, and a little bit on Facebook. And come September, look out for the Bourbon Community Roundtable of the tasting of the Old Taylor 17-year. And in November, look out for my book, Bourbon Justice. Thanks, guys.
How can we keep Sazerac from appealing?
You got to hire him, feed him bourbon.
Exactly. Hire me. I'll give you some advice.
How do we find the addresses of their attorneys?
Yeah.
All right, Nick, you chimed in. You're next.
All right, so I'm Nick, one of the 3 guys behind Breaking Bourbon. Find us online at breakingbourbon.com. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Breaking Bourbon, and check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Breaking Bourbon.
And you join the party too. We're all doing barrel pick clubs, right?
Yeah, that's it's the party's fun, so why not join in? Just newly launched, so check it out. We've got a little bit different kind of program than you guys are running, but I think they're all fantastic. I don't think you can have too many single barrel picks. It's just a fun thing to do, and I think sometimes that's where you discover a lot of the best stuff that's also not $160 a bottle necessarily. Sure. So
absolutely,
exactly. And everybody loves a good review from Breaking Bourbon. You guys are totally in depth, so I think a lot of people trust your palate. So definitely go and check those guys out. Carrie, you're next.
So hey, this is Carrie. My blog is Writing is Difficult When You're Only One Guy.com. And you can find me. Actually, you won't be able to find me because I'm selling my website. I'm going to make money, and I'm going to buy a Parker's Heritage and maybe a couple of them. But you can always find me trolling people, bourbonart.com, or on Facebook, Bourbon Art Group. And, of course, on Twitter, at @bourbon_gamer. And feel free to send me an invite for Fortnite if you want. Thanks.
So you don't have time to write blog posts, but you have time to play Fortnite. That's.
I think I saw that his kids are away at camp for the summer, so he's got a lot of free time.
I do. That's a lot of fun.
I'm actually surprised you're wearing clothes tonight, so I appreciate you putting on a shirt for us.
I don't have shorts on or pants, but I got shorts on.
Let's wait till we end the podcast. Blake, go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, so I'm Blake from Bourboner. all the social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, BOURBONR.com.
You know how I know Blake has twins? I saw him chugging coffee and bourbon within like 20 seconds of each other.
You got to prepare yourself. I've muted screaming in the background. We actually hit what I call the quad in the family, which is all 4 kids screaming at once. So,
yeah, I've been there.
You saw me go to and from a room. That's probably why.
You're gonna need to sell some of those bottles and get a different floor.
Oh yeah, no, we can't have nice things at this point. The floor is just, we've given up on furniture. We'll get new ones in like 10 years.
There you go. Good deal. So, fellas, I want to say thank you again for joining tonight. We had a lot of good discussion. I think we actually have more points we could say for next time because, one of the things that we didn't even talk about that is coming out relatively soon are 1792 bottled and bond single barrels. So expect those to start hitting markets relatively soon as well. So that's going to be very, very fun. Don't you dare yawn, Carrie. I actually picked one. Okay, it's going to be delicious.
I'm sure that extra 8 proof is going to be huge.
What a dick, right? What a dick.
Okay, it's not 27 years old, but
it'll be all right. But again, thank you all so much for joining. Ryan, go ahead and wrap it up for us.
Guys, thank you all for joining us. I know it takes a lot of time to come in here and chat about bourbon for an hour and a half. So appreciate you all taking the time as always. To everyone listening, we're not here without you, so I appreciate you all listening in and keep giving us ideas, show suggestions, feedback. We love bringing content to you guys, so keep it up.